Hello and welcome back. So in the previous video, we looked at how to write conditional statements or how to put certain controls on the way in which our code runs or our program runs. We made mention of the if else statements, if elif, and then else statements. And then in this video, we would look at data structures. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Sometimes in real world or in our normal languages, we would want to look for ways to represent a collection of objects or collection of values or collection of data. In mathematics, we call them sets, right? So well-defined collection of objects. It's basically a set, right? Where we put certain things into a collection. I don't want to say groups, but if I say group, I don't mean a mathematical group, but then we put them in a collection where we can refer to all of them. So go get me the class of boys or the boys in so and so class, or go get me the pack of wolves, or you put these things in a collection. So the same thing happens in Python. So Python allows us to represent the certain collection, right? So let me call this 8 point, and then the name would be data structures, right? .py. So basically, Python keeps its collections or refers to something that we use to put different types of data in a group or in a collection as data structures, right? So there are different types of Python data structures. So data structures. And then the first one we would look at is the list, right? The list data structure. And the list is represented with a square bracket. So basically a list contains any type of data at all. So you can put any type of data. So holds a mixture of data. So which means that you can include any type, ints, floats, booleans, and then even strings, right? And then could allow for repetition and all those things. So basically a list can contain any of these things, right? And in mathematics, we could also represent our matrices or our vectors using a list, right? So in Python, so keep that in mind. So then two, we have what we call sets. We have a set represented as curly braces, but then this set only holds unique, right? Unique values of data, right? So we'll look at that very soon. And then we have tuples, a tuple, right? So a tuple is represented by a parenthesis. And then tuple are just immutable lists, which means that you can't change their values once they are defined until you collapse or reassign them. You can't change the value inside it. So immutable lists, right, or collection of values. And then we have the dictionaries as well. And then the dictionaries is basically contains a key value pair. So dictionaries, and they're represented with a curly braces, but this time around has a key which is assigned to a value. So that's basically like a key value pair. So note that the determination or what determines the data structure is not necessarily the curly bracket or the notation used, but the value inside it, right? So the list contains mixture of values, sets unique values. The tuple is immutable, which means that you can represent them here, or you can just list any value and then bring a comma, another value, and then another comma, another value. These two things are the same. Either you do it this way or you do it this way. We'll look at an example and then you know what I'm talking about. So basically, these are the data structures. So let's see. So I can assign a vector A, right, to contain, let's say, a vector A to hold, let's say, the numbers 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, right? And then, so this is a list, or you can call them a list of numbers, but then bear in mind that this is 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, right? What if I have a set A? Keep in mind that you don't use some keywords used by Python. What if I have the same thing, 2, 2, 3, 4, right? Just keep this in mind. And then a tuple, so tuple, no, I won't use that. So let's say, let me just say brackets or something, or vec b or something, password 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Okay, I save this, and then a dictionary. So let me call it dictionary. So this should be like a journal. So let me just call it something else. So B should be equal to a dictionary. So that will have a key. So let's say name, which is a string, and then we assigned the value, set them to that string, and then we have another key which is age, and then we assign another value to it. So that's like maybe 25 to it. Okay. So now let's look at these three. So if I try printing their type, I have to type vector A. I have what? If I should save this file and I use Python 3, Python to run the 8 point something for me. You said it tells me that it's a list. What if I change this to set A and I save it? It tells me that this is what? A set, right? So let me change this one. And then let me paste them several times. So let me change this one back to vector. Vector. Bear in mind that Python or any programming language is the case matter, right? So capital V is different from small v. So always make sure that you have the same thing spelled. So vec A, and then, sorry, this would be vec B, vec small b, and then capital B here. We just want to check and validate that these things are the data structures as I said. So if you print a type, you see you have the list, the set, the tuple, and then the dict for dictionaries. Okay, now let's see how we can get their values, right? If I save this and I paste that, I will change the type. If I print a set A, let's look at what happens. You see that it removes a repetition, right? You have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, but here it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, which means that sets, we said they should be unique. What if I try to add Kofi here? What then happens? You see that it brings Kofi here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 Kofi, right? And then you can, if you try repeating the Kofi as well, you see that it just brings 1, right? So it removes duplicates and makes sure that you have only unique value. So one way of ensuring that your values are just unique, they're just 1, they occur only once, is to put them in sets, right? It will always make sure that you have unique instances, just single instances of your values or your data. Then the next one we'll look at is the vector. So vector A, if you save this and you run it, you should see the values printed, including the repetitions, right? So keep that in mind. This is a list. Then the list can contain anything, and then you can do anything to it. If you try to print a tuple, right? So if I print this and I say that's vector B, vec B, this also prints a tuple for me, right? You see that the tuple to include the double or the repetitions. Okay, so now let's look at a different way of, if I say this, let's look at this. If I just say maybe F should be equal to 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? If I should save this and I run it, let's see what happens. Nothing happens. What if I print the type of F? What then happens here? You see that it tells me that F is a tuple, right? Which means that you don't have to necessarily enclose this in what? Brackets for it to recognize it as a what? A tuple, right? So you should always keep that in mind. You can always define a tuple just like this. If you want to assign different variables to it, then you have to make sure that they are equal. The number of variables here are equal to the number of variables here. Then, by so doing, this will be regarded as just an integer or a literal or something else. So keep that in mind. If you just assign one single variable to something like this, it regards this as a tuple, right? I bear in mind that tuple, we can't mutate, we can't change. Their values remain the same and changed during the entire process of the code. Okay, so basically this is the introduction of data structures. I will end the video here, and then in the next video we'll look at how to get each value from the data structures that we discussed. If you've learned something from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends. And then we can't wait to see you in the next one.